Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. According to historical records, in November 1725, Emperor Yongzheng's most beloved imperial consort, noble Consort Nian, posthumously honored as Empress Dowager Dunsu, passed away in the old summer palace, Yuanminjiwen. Her death dealt a heavy blow to the emperor, plunging him into deep grief. So devastated was he that he broke with the Qing dynasty's traditions for imperial consorts and granted her unprecedented honors. He bestowed upon her a posthumous title typically reserved for emperors and even ordered princes and high officials to wear mourning clothes, an extraordinary gesture. Moreover, she was buried alongside Emperor Yongzheng in the underground palace of the Tai Mausoleum. Such treatment was virtually unheard of for imperial consorts in Qing history, highlighting the emperor's deep affection for her. However, surprisingly, not long afterward, Emperor Yongzheng's attitude seemed to take a dramatic 180-degree turn. He began to take harsh measures against the family of noble Consort Nian. What had happened? Was this a case of the emperor being capricious, or was there a hidden story behind this reversal? To understand what lay behind this change, we need to start with noble Consort Nian's elder brother, Nian Gengyao. Nian Gengyao was a well-known figure in Qing dynasty history. Born in 1679 into the Han Chinese plain white banner, his family originally served as buiyaha bondservants to Prince Yongle, who later became Emperor Yongzheng. Some may not be familiar with the term bui. In short, bui were household servants of the Qing imperial family. Though technically slaves, they held a higher status than ordinary servants and often served in official positions, making them close confidants of the royal household. Nian Gengyao's father, Nian Xiaoling, was a capable official who rose to the position of governor of Huang, laying a solid foundation for his son's future in the bureaucracy. Thanks to both his family background and his own talents, Nian Gengyao's career progressed far more smoothly than his peers. Many people know him as a brilliant general, one of the rare military talents who served during both the Kangxi and Yongzheng reigns, but he was far more than just a military man. From a young age, Nian Gengyao was exceptionally intelligent, well-read, and deeply learned. At the age of 22, he passed the Imperial Civil Service exam and earned the title of Jinshi, Metropolitan Graduate, securing a place for himself in the scholarly world. At 23, he entered the prestigious Hanlin Academy as a Jiantao compiler, a 7th-rank official post. Though low in rank, this was a highly promising start to an official career in Qing China. At 26, he was sent to Sichuan to oversee the provincial examination, gaining valuable experience in local governance. Upon returning to the capital, he was quickly promoted to Shidu Shuesher, a 6th-rank position, and soon thereafter to Shijiang Shuesher, a 4th-rank academic post. By the age of 30, he had already reached the 3rd rank as an academician, with the additional title of Vice Minister of Rights, an extremely impressive resume. To put this into perspective, let's compare him to Zhang Tingyu, another major figure of the time. Zhang Tingyu would eventually rise to become Grand Counselor, wielding immense power, but he passed the Jinshi exam the same year as Nian Gengyao. They started from the same point, yet Zhang took 7 full years to reach the level Nian had attained by age 30. Nian's meteoric rise was akin to riding a rocket. In 1709, at age 30, Nian Gengyao was appointed by Emperor Kangxi as governor of Sichuan. That year marked a turning point in his already stellar career. Historians note that Sichuan was by no means an easy province to govern. At the time, it was remote, plagued by banditry, and riddled with corruption. Many local officials were negligent and self-serving. Upon his arrival, Nian quickly demonstrated his administrative skill. He led by example, refusing bribes, cracking down on corruption, and leaving those attempting to curry favor empty-handed. He then tackled long-standing issues in military affairs, civil administration, and taxation, reforming the tax system, improving water conservancy, and suppressing local bandits. These reforms transformed the political climate of Sichuan, restoring order and improving the lives of its people. When Emperor Kangxi heard of his achievements, he was highly pleased. In his official remarks, he praised Nian Gengyao and encouraged him to remain upright and serve as a model official. After receiving the emperor's praise, Nian Gengyao became even more motivated, believing that his future was boundless. In 1718, to defend Tibet, Emperor Kangxi appointed his 14th son, Prince Yinti, as general who pacifies the distant lands, Fuyuan Dajiangzhen, and ordered him to lead a campaign against the Dzungar leader Tsewang Araptan, who had entrenched himself in Tibet. Upon hearing the news, Nian Gengyao volunteered to join the military expedition and offered to take charge of transporting military supplies to the front lines, to improve the army's combat effectiveness. He made a bold request to Emperor Kangxi. He asked to be promoted to governor-general so that he could oversee both civil and military affairs in Sichuan. And he also requested special honors such as the right to wear the peacock feather, symbols of imperial favor, to better command the various military forces. Emperor Kangxi admired Nian Gengyao's boldness and immediately appointed him as governor-general of Sichuan. A year later, after the Qing forces successfully defended Tibet, Kangxi rewarded Nian for his meritorious service by promoting him again, this time to governor-general of Sichuan and Shaanxi, giving him authority over the military, administrative, and financial affairs of both provinces. At just 40 years old, Nian had become a true regional powerhouse, Fengjian Gali, wielding immense influence and enjoying unmatched prestige. In 1722, Emperor Kangxi passed away, and the fourth prince, Yongle, ascended the throne as Emperor Yongzheng. After taking power, Yongzheng lavished rewards on his supporters. As a former subordinate and trusted confidant, Nian Gengyao naturally received great favor. He was granted the honorary title of Grand Guardian, Taibao, and elevated to the rank of third-class duke. The entire Nian family benefited from his rise. His elder brother Nian Xiao was appointed governor of Guangdong. His brother-in-law Hu Fenghui was made superintendent of the Suzhou Weaving Bureau, and his father Nian Xiaoling, though already retired, was posthumously awarded the rank of minister, Shangshu. More astonishingly, Emperor Yongzheng granted Nian Gengyao an unprecedented level of power. The appointments and dismissals of all civil and military officials in Sichuan, Shaanxi, and Yunnan were subject to his discretion. It was as if half the empire had been entrusted to him. Yongzheng trusted him so deeply that he was said to regard Nian as his right-hand man. Some may wonder, wasn't the emperor afraid that Nian, with such power, might rebel? In fact, at the beginning, Yongzheng had no such concerns. In one of his edicts to Nian Gengyao, he wrote, "Throughout history, it is rare for a ruler and his subject to be so perfectly aligned in mind and spirit. You are fortunate to have met me, and I am delighted to have met you. Let us become a timeless example of loyalty and unity between sovereign and minister. One that future generations will envy." These words were heartfelt. Yongzheng's trust in Nian was nearly unconditional. He even openly declared that Nian Gengyao was not only a meritorious official but also his personal benefactor. Such a bond between ruler and subject is indeed rare in history. In 1723, a rebellion broke out in Qinghai, led by Lobzang Danjin. Emperor Yongzheng immediately appointed Nian Gengyao as general who pacifies the distant lands and sent him to suppress the revolt. Initially, Nian did not fare well and suffered several defeats. Some court officials began to express doubts about his ability. For example, Longkodo submitted a memorial suggesting that an imperial envoy be dispatched to oversee Nian, lest he become too powerful. However, Emperor Yongzheng firmly backed Nian Gengyao. He rejected Longkodo's memorial, making it clear that he had absolute trust in Nian. More than 4 months later, with the help of his deputy Yu Zhongqi, Nian turned the tide and defeated the rebel forces, pacifying Qinghai. The victory report reached Beijing while Yongzheng was at the imperial mausoleum paying tribute to his father, Emperor Kangxi. Overjoyed, he immediately elevated Nian Gengyao and his father Nian Xiaoling to first-class noble titles. Nian's son, Nian Fu, was also granted the rank of first-class viscount. Yongzheng publicly proclaimed once again that Nian was not only a great contributor to the dynasty but also a personal benefactor. From that moment on, Emperor Yongzheng's trust in Nian Gengyao reached its peak. Although Nian was primarily a military figure, Yongzheng always consulted him on major political decisions. For instance, when implementing the Haoxian Guigong policy, a major national fiscal reform, Yongzheng dispatched an urgent courier riding 800 li per day to seek Nian's opinion. His advice had a significant influence on the emperor's decisions. At the age of just 45, Nian Gengyao had reached the pinnacle of power and prestige for a military official. In 1724, Nian Gengyao once again rendered meritorious service by quelling the rebellion at Zhuozi Mountain. By that time, Emperor Yongzheng had already rewarded him to the fullest extent possible. With no more honors left to bestow, the emperor instead granted hereditary nobility to his descendants, ennobling Nian's second son, Nian Fu, as a baron. However, as the saying goes, when water reaches its full mark, it overflows. When the moon is full, it begins to wane. Nian Gengyao's streak of smooth sailing did not last long. Just as he reached the pinnacle of his career, things quietly began to change. After pacifying Qinghai, Nian Gengyao was required by regulation to return to the capital and report to the emperor in person. To commend his achievements, Emperor Yongzheng arranged a reception of unprecedented grandeur. Roads along the route were leveled. Shops were closed, and princes and nobles personally rode out of the city to greet him. Even high-ranking officials like the governors of Shaanxi and Zhili were required to kneel in welcome. If Nian had possessed greater emotional intelligence, he would have responded to such honors with modesty and humility. But instead, he accepted them without hesitation and behaved with extreme arrogance. As he rode past the assembled princes and ministers, he merely nodded slightly from horseback, exuding smugness. Even more astonishingly, he showed no restraint in front of Emperor Yongzheng himself, sitting with a casual posture, completely ignoring the decorum expected of a subject. Many court officials were offended and began discussing his behavior privately. His arrogance stirred widespread discontent among the bureaucracy. Yet outwardly, Emperor Yongzheng remained calm, even bestowing valuable gifts upon him, such as a peacock feather, a four-dragon robe, and an imperial belt, seemingly reinforcing Nian's belief that his merits justified such treatment and that others' envy was irrelevant. Emboldened, Nian began extending his influence into the 6 ministries of the central government, recommending numerous officials under the pretense of military merit. The Ministry of Personnel even had to create a separate archive, dubbed the Nian Registry, specifically to manage his appointees. Ambitious officials scrambled to ingratiate themselves with him, showering his household with gifts, which Nian accepted freely. Gradually, this group of loyalists coalesced into a political faction centered on Nian Gengyao, informally known as the Nian Party. Even his servants, such as Wei Zhiyao, became overbearing and abusive, bullying others under Nian's protection. Emperor Yongzheng deeply despised factionalism and was increasingly displeased with this turn of events. Not wanting to see Nian fall deeper into ruin, the emperor publicly warned him. It is not easy to be a loyal subject. It is difficult to achieve merit, harder still to maintain it, and hardest of all to preserve it without inviting ruin. A man of merit must know how to remain humble, avoid suspicion, and retreat at the right time. Only then can he escape a tragic end. Unfortunately, Nian paid no attention to these warnings. Having been stationed in the provinces for years, wielding great power and surrounded by constant flattery, he truly came to see himself as a local emperor. Nian referred to meals as imperial banquets, summoned his concubines by flipping nameplates, a practice reserved for emperors, and issued orders he called imperial decrees. His residence was adorned with gilded dragons, his sons wore robes embroidered with dragon patterns, and even his servants strutted around town in mangpeo, robes typically reserved for nobles. Even more outrageous, he turned imperial bodyguards, who had been sent by the emperor for training, into his personal attendants. On one occasion, he self-financed the publication of a Tang Dynasty treatise titled Lu Shi Zhou Yi. Emperor Yongzheng had initially intended to write the preface himself. But Nian took it upon himself to write it in the emperor's name and circulated the book widely without permission. This finally pushed Emperor Yongzheng's patience to the brink. However, it's important to note that the emperor had not intended from the start to punish Nian Gengyao. His feelings toward Nian were complicated, a blend of sovereign-subject loyalty and personal affection. After all, Nian's sister was noble Consort Nian, the emperor's most beloved consort. Yongzheng's deep affection for her had also influenced his leniency toward Nian Gengyao. According to some historical records, noble Consort Nian was not only exceptionally beautiful but also highly talented, and she was deeply loved by Emperor Yongzheng. Her death plunged the emperor into deep sorrow and even affected his decision-making. However, Nian Gengyao's growing arrogance gradually led to Yongzheng's increasing disappointment. In March 1725, a rare celestial phenomenon occurred in Beijing, the sun and moon aligned. And the 5 planets converged. Ministers submitted memorials to offer congratulations. Nian Gengyao also tried to use the opportunity to mend his strained relationship with the emperor by submitting a congratulatory memorial. However, he carelessly made a critical error. He reversed a phrase. Instead of writing, meaning diligent from dawn to dusk, used to praise the emperor's diligence, he wrote, which implied the opposite. Emperor Yongzheng was furious upon reading it. He believed Nian had done it intentionally to mock him. In his rescript, Yongzheng angrily wrote, "You are a scholar, you could not have made such a mistake. This is clearly an intentional insult, implying that I am unworthy of being described as diligent and vigilant." This incident became the final straw that broke the relationship between sovereign and subject. Emperor Yongzheng began taking action against Nian Gengyao. He first distanced himself from Nian's closest allies by reassigning them from important positions. Sensing a shift in imperial favor, many officials submitted memorials exposing Nian's alleged crimes. Yongzheng forwarded these memorials to Nian, demanding an explanation. But by this time, Nian had completely lost the emperor's trust, and no amount of explanation could save him. Soon, he was stripped of his positions as Governor-General of Sichuan and Shaanxi and as general who pacifies the distant lands. He was reassigned as general of Hangzhou. Before his departure, Emperor Yongzheng told him bluntly, "I'm sending you to Hangzhou because I want to see if you truly have the fate of an emperor. If you intend to rebel, I will not stop you. But if you are loyal, then manage your troops honestly and prevent others from rebelling." Nian Gengyao understood the threat hidden in those words and realized the situation was grave. In a desperate attempt to preserve his wealth, he took a risky move. He arranged for 230 carts, 2,000 horses, and over 70 boats to transport his property to Hunan, Tianjin, Shaanxi, Hangzhou, and other regions. But how could such actions escape the watchful eye of Emperor Yongzheng? With the help of the governors of Shaanxi, Zhili, and Hunan, the emperor launched a massive investigation and confiscated Nian's assets. The haul included 4 million taels of silver, 297 hectares of land, over 1,200 houses, and countless pieces of jade, porcelain, and artwork. Most of this wealth had been amassed through bribery and corruption, crimes Emperor Yongzheng abhorred. The discovery left him thoroughly disillusioned. What made matters worse was the discovery of a booklet among Nian's possessions. Its author, Wang Jingqi, had written it to flatter Nian and had even gone so far as to devalue the emperor's reign title. Although Nian didn't write it himself, he kept it in his collection. To Yongzheng, this was a clear sign of Nian's ambition. Yet even then, Nian Gengyao still dreamed of a comeback. On May 17, 1725, after arriving in Hejing, Jiangsu, he deliberately delayed his journey, refusing to proceed to his new post in Hangzhou. He submitted a memorial stating that he dared not linger in Shaanxi or go to Zhejiang and wished to remain in Hejing awaiting imperial orders. But Emperor Yongzheng saw right through him and sternly rebuked him for hesitating and being indecisive. Nian had no choice but to continue to Hangzhou. However, after serving just 25 days as general of Hangzhou, he was demoted again, this time for showing no gratitude. He was stripped of his position, demoted to a common bannerman, and assigned to guard the eastern gate of Hangzhou. His noble title was completely revoked, reducing him to a mere commoner. At the same time, officials seized the opportunity to strike him further, submitting more memorials accusing him of various crimes. In September, Emperor Yongzheng ordered that Nian Gengyao and his family be escorted back to Beijing and interrogated by the three judicial offices, Ministry of Justice, the Censorate, and the Court of Judicial Review. Ultimately, Nian Gengyao was convicted of 92 crimes, nearly 30 of which were major charges of treason. Under Qing law, this was enough to justify the execution of his entire family. However, Yongzheng, remembering their past relationship and Nian's service, refrained from using extreme measures. After the death of noble Consort Nian, in early November, a white tiger stormed into Nian's residence and was killed, an omen that Yongzheng took as divine judgment. He finally made up his mind and ordered Nian to commit suicide in prison. Upon receiving the decree, Nian begged for mercy, pleading that he was only 46 years old and still capable of serving the Qing dynasty. But the emperor's mind was made up. His message was delivered clearly. Your crimes are severe and deserve harsh punishment. But in remembrance of your past merits, I am granting you the right to end your life honorably. I've also spared your father, brothers, and sons. You should be grateful. Upon hearing this, Nian kowtowed to express his gratitude and then took his own life. According to the law, Nian Gengyao's crimes were severe enough to warrant the extermination of his entire clan, including the enslavement of his wives, concubines, and children. However, Emperor Yongzheng showed leniency. Apart from his second son, Nian Fu, who was executed due to his behavior closely mirroring his father's, the rest of the family was spared. Nian's eldest son, Nian Shi, had died young due to illness. Two of his sons who were over 15 years old were exiled to Yunnan Guizhou and Guangxi, while his youngest son was raised by Nian's father, Nian Xiaoling. Nian Xiaoling retained his title as a first-class duke. Nian's elder brother, Nian Xiao, was merely dismissed from office. His sister and brother-in-law were allowed to keep their original positions. Emperor Yongzheng also decreed that the properties of other members of the Nian family should not be confiscated. Among Nian Gengyao's wives, his first was the granddaughter of Nailan Mingzhu, who died shortly after their marriage. His second wife was of the Aizen Zhoro clan, a member of the imperial family. Yongzheng sent her back to her natal home, where she lived off the family estate of the noble house. Nian's daughter had been engaged to a descendant of Confucius, from the Kong family. But after Nian's downfall, the Kong family broke off the engagement. Branded as the daughter of a disgraced official, she became unmarriageable and lived out her life in solitude. Nian Gengyao's advisors, including Wang Jingqi, were executed for their crimes, and their families were implicated. Male relatives were exiled, and female relatives were enslaved. A year later, moved by Nian Gengyao's past service and his bond with noble Consort Nian, Emperor Yongzheng granted new favors to the Nian family. The exiled sons were pardoned and placed under the care of their grandfather Nian Xiaoling, regaining their freedom. Nian Xiao was reinstated and eventually rose to the rank of director of the Imperial Household Department, later being promoted to censor-in-chief. After Nian Xiaoling's death, Emperor Yongzheng sent officials to offer official condolences and posthumously restored his honorary title of Grand Preceptor. He was permitted to be buried with the rights of a first-class duke. As some historians have commented, Nian Gengyao's story serves as a microcosm of the Qing imperial bureaucracy. His rise was inseparable from the trust placed in him by both Emperor Kangxi and Emperor Yongzheng, as well as from his own talent and hard work. His achievements in governing Sichuan and his military exploits in Tibet and Qinghai were genuine contributions. However, it was Nian Gengyao's arrogance and greed that ultimately led to his downfall. Emperor Yongzheng's handling of his case was both harsh and merciful. Compared to the fate of many other meritorious officials in history, Nian Gengyao was relatively fortunate. Not only did Yongzheng spare his family, but he later granted them many favors. This suggests that Emperor Yongzheng was not a cold or ruthless ruler, but one with a deep sense of humanity. Had Nian Gengyao recognized his place earlier and exercised restraint, he might have avoided such a tragic end. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.